Hello again, Coldstep Diablo Force Open Beta tests are almost here, like less than a week left, and I'm already making some pre-launch Theorycrafted semi-builds that should be good for fresh into endgame characters when the game launches, meaning not that great for beta characters, more about that in a moment. I also plan to evolve them into full setups, full builds when the game is released, and keep those setups updated when we get rebalance updates, when we get new seasons, and so on. This is one such build for the rogue class, and it is called Coldstep, and it's a very fun setup, I hope. At least on paper, it is for me a fun setup. The beta test, a little bit information about it, we will only be able to reach level 25 and only play in the first act / zone fractured peak, so limited in terms of items, legendary powers you can get, and in skill points. So those builds won't be as useful for beta play as they would be to people in the actual game post-launch. Ideally for characters level 50 plus, 60 plus, I've used a total of 63, if I'm not mistaken, skill points for this setup. Yes, 63. So keep that in mind. People told me that 63 might be the limit, and I'm keeping that kind of in mind when making setups. Whether it's 63, 65, hopefully it's 70 at least, so we have a little bit of extra room there for extra passives. But I've kept that in mind when making that. But those builds would be good, useful for fresh into the endgame characters to jumpstart their post-story endgame grind. I've also made spreadsheets, 2 of them, and one that's private. The one you're seeing on the screen is the private one, but I do transfer the builds from the private one once I'm done with uploading the builds into public ones. 2 public ones. One where I contain, where I keep all the builds that I make. And another one that can be used kind of as a mini build calculator that has the full skill trees of all classes, including the list of legendary aspects I could find information about on the internet, which again might get expanded, should get expanded. Now, all that said, the one that you're seeing on will be seeing on your screen only contains passive, I believe, could be useful. Some of the things I've omitted. All of the active skills I've omitted except the ones I've taken or consider good taking. Now, I hope you like it, buckle up and let's go. To avoid any confusion, I want to start from the bottom up. Normally, when I make builds, I first choose the specialization and I'm okay, I want to build around this specialization. Let's see what ultimate fits. I pick the specialization and the ultimate. And once I like that, then I start picking the rest of the stuff for the build. So some skills might be better with other specializations. I do know that, but let's go through it from here onwards. So close quarters combat, CQC. Damaging an enemy, nearby enemy with a ranged or melee skill grants attack speed bonus for 8 seconds when you have both the ranged and the melee. Attack speed bonus is active. You gain lucky hit up to a 75% chance to generate 10 energy and deal 15% increased damage when you deal direct damage to a crowd-controlled enemy. So what can we tell? The build requires for crowd-controlled enemies to be around us, nearby us. Actually, it doesn't have to be near us, but if you want to proc those things, it needs to be nearby. And you need to do direct damage to those crowd-controlled enemies if you want to keep that energy going. Apparently, the energy becomes not much of a problem in the late levels, so maybe that won't be that great of a thing to keep in mind, but the increased damage doesn't seem bad, but obviously there's better specializations, I know that. Now, Shadow Clone is what I wanted to try, the Kagebushinka and the Kagebushin skill. So the Shadow mimics your actions and does 60% of your damage for 15 seconds, cooldown 60 seconds, but now with this upgrade, it becomes 80% of our total damage, which is pretty solid by mimicking us. So you want to spam for those 15 seconds, do as much of your rotations as possible. That's why you need all that energy you can get. And you're unstoppable while you have the shadow up. This one up to 20% chance to gain 5 energy on hit, regardless of what hit. Every 100 energy you spend grants you 10% increased Wookiee hit chance for 5 seconds. So if you have this 10% Wookiee hit chance, it seems to be additive. That means this 75 becomes 85. And if you get another one, it becomes a 95. I'm not sure if this can stack, but you probably can if you can do it within 5 seconds to get another one. 100 energy spent. I didn't take this. And additionally, you can take this and that, even that. But again, we don't have all the skill points we can. After casting an ultimate, restore 25 energy. Very good to help us with the initial spam of skills so that the clone can multiply this. Now, I've taken Coat Imbue, but if you want to take Shadow or Poison, I have color-coded the skills I would max out. Obviously this and this, but here I would max this one out to 1 point instead of that one. You can only pick one of them. Here I would take this, and the blended Imbue with the critical strikes with poison imbued skills deal multiplicative increased poison damage, which I think is the better choice, although this one is lovely as well. And if you do take poison, there's this and this to consider. If you do take shadow, this and this to consider. For coat, I only recommend taking this. I wouldn't take that one. I think we have plenty of slow and other stuff. We have plenty of crowd control by chilling and so on. Now moving on to subterfuge, I prefer stealth, but I added an option. Second option, if you want binding smoke, you can take this with this upgrade and that upgrade countering binding smoke. I've added some text here to read about those. You can check that later when the document's uploaded. Stealth. For 4 seconds, you're stealthy, you're in the shadows, and attack during stealth, break stealth, and deal 50% more damage. You're unstoppable and can move through enemies freely while in stealth. 16-second cooldown, 4-second duration. You gain 40 energy when you enter stealth. Perfect. And the skill that breaks stealth makes enemies vulnerable for 3 seconds. Lovely. Especially if it's an AoE skill. Exploit. You deal 18% multiplicative increased damage to healthy and injured enemies. I wonder if that's 18% per point, 18% with the 3 points, or that's 2 times 9 for 2 points. We'll see how that goes. That together with Malice, multiplicative increased damage to vulnerable enemies, a lovely, lovely synergy. Agile is not bad, but I think we've got more important things to put points into, such as weapon mastery. You'll be probably using a bow or a crossbow. I personally would prefer using the bow because it's increased damage to vulnerable enemies if you think you get enough vulnerable applied on enemies. Otherwise, crossbows, but that means you need enough crit chance to be able to benefit from it. Either case, it's solid bonuses. And for the dual wield, for Shadow Step, more about that in a moment, you get, I would recommend dual wielding dagger and a sword, so you get both bonuses there. This is just my suggestion, and I got a confirmation that you can dual wield, mix and match daggers and swords. Shadow Step is our melee skill. You will be doing range skills, 2 range skills in close range to take advantage of this close quarters, but we need also a melee, and this is where Shadow Step comes in. Low cooldown, in my opinion, 9.8 seconds, so you should be able to use it reasonably. Within those 8 seconds, you should be able to get it. So there's going to be very short downtime between those 8 seconds and those 9.8 seconds. So this shadow steps behind the enemy, so you backstab them, and you gain increased movement speed, 50% increased movement speed for 2 seconds, which again, not something I care much about, but it's nice. This one can be imbued with our freeze, with our code. Damaging an enemy with Shadow Step increases your crit strike chance against them by 8%, which is perfect to initiate the fight with. And now, Shadow Step's cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds if it damages an enemy you haven't dealt direct damage to in the last 4 seconds. So, this is not bad, but I'd rather take that one for the crowd control, but either is good. It's not must-have to get this. If you want the lower cooldown, this can help you with it, as long as you haven't dealt direct damage to a certain enemy for the last 4 seconds, which in most cases you would have. This brings us to sturdy. 12% melee damage reduction needed for that build. And siphoning strikes, consider siphoning strikes if you think you're critting often enough and if you think you need that extra life. Here's rapid fire. And if you use combo points, it would be nice because you get 8 total arrows from 5. And you get 29% increased damage. And each arrow hitting an enemy has a chance to trigger things like that. If you do decide to take it, if you need energy, I don't think we'll need as much energy, so I decided to take enhanced rapid fire. So each subsequent arrow gets 5% increased crit chance, meaning 8 arrows, each subsequent will get that 5%. So that's 7 arrows before the 8th one. That would have given it 35% increased crit strike chance if it's the same target. Although it doesn't mention that it needs to be the same target. Now, rapid fire deals multiplicates increased crit strike damage to vulnerable enemies. Perfect synergy here. We have plenty of vulnerable causing things such as forceful arrow, which makes them vulnerable for 2 seconds. And now it makes them for 4 seconds instead if they are nearby, which they should be because that's the type of build we have. And now it pierces through the first enemy, it damages if they are nearby. Again, that's the type of build we have taken. Although you have this option to knock back, which can result into a knockdown if they collide with another enemy, I do prefer the piercing. And this is it for the skill points. Off to the next segment. I like starting this segment by quickly explaining to new players. I mean, I would be a new player when the game launches as well, but to people who don't have the information regarding how those things work, how legendary aspects work, what are they, how you get them, and so on. So hopefully this is useful information to all of you out there watching this. Legendary aspects are the legendary affixes, the legendary powers that come alongside legendary dropped items. And you can get them from regular drops from monsters, drops from chests, or other wood sources. Each legendary power is unique in a way, and it belongs to a category: defensive, offensive, mobility, utility, resource. So you can move it from one item of the same category to another through an NPC. So let's take resource that I've highlighted, which is helmets, amulets, and rings can be resource. You can take the thing from a helmet, put it on a ring, from the ring, put it on the amulet, from the amulet, put it to the helmet, and so on. So as long as it's within the same category, you can move an aspect around. You can see on certain slots, there are multiple things that can fit. Pants can only have defensive, weapons and offhands can only have offensive. The rest have multiple categories, so there's some mixing and matching that can be done. Now, all that said, you can also get the bare minimum row of each aspect by completing a certain dungeon. For example, this one. In the Fracture Peaks, if you go to Sanguine Chapel and defeat the final boss, you would unlock a legendary aspect called Energizing Aspect, but you would get the bare minimum. So not sure if 5 energy is the bare minimum, whether it goes up to 10 and so on, but with this one we are sure that the bare minimum is 20. So wherever this one is unlocked, you would always get the 20 when you unlock it through completing the dungeon. But if you get it as a drop, this 20 could be 25 or whatever the maximum possible is. But it's better than nothing. It's better than not having certain things that are built around me. For example, this one, or that one, they're solid choices, or this one. So if you need something and you're not getting lucky with the drops, then go to the right dungeon, kill the boss, and open your Codex of Power, which is a user interface that collects those codexes. And then you can go to the NPC and take the codex from the user interface, take the aspect from the codex, and put it on an item of your choosing. And they seem to remain there permanently, so you don't have to keep defeating the boss of that dungeon to keep unlocking that codex. Once you unlock it, it's there forever from the looks of it. But I cannot confirm that for 100%. Now let's go through all the aspects I took. Umbro for the helmet, Shared Misery for the chest, Vengeful Aspect for the gloves, Aspect of Might for the pants, Ghost Walker for the boots. I prefer that even though stealth gives us the same thing to move through enemies. I still think it's better than Wind Striker. Pummeling for the amulet, but mind you, I only took pummeling. I didn't take retribution because I don't think we have enough stuns, but we will have plenty of chilling and freezing, and we will have knockdowns as well from certain skills. Ravenous aspect in ring 1, unstable imbuements on ring 2, then aspect of inner calm on our one-handed and offhand. Our main weapon will be the bow because we have forceful and rapid fire, or crossbow, whatever we take. But we need a dual-wielded setup. I'm not sure how swapping from the one to the other would be, whether it would be like the Berserkers with like the Barbarians Arsenal, where you can just set what skill to use which weapon, and it would automatically switch to that weapon when you cast it or not. How it works remains to be seen, but in the worst case, you would have to press tab or whatever button it is to switch weapon sets from one to the other before casting the skill. But hopefully you don't have to. Hopefully you can keep your two-handed weapon equipped, and just pressing Shadow Step automatically switches to your secondary weapon set for the moment, for the animation. So I took non-ranged aspects for the one-handed offhand, which are Inner Calm and Corruption. Inner Calm is, if I'm not mistaken, the important one that I took, but Corruption is not bad either. So you can see what we have here. You can see all the things we took. Inner Calm is increased damage for each second you stand still for the melee. Very good synergy. Whereas Corruption is your imbuements have multiplicative increased potency against vulnerable enemies. Now let's quickly talk about some of the other ones. I want to go through the purple, yellow, and green. That's my colors, not actual colors in the game. Let's take the resources. Energizing is good as alternative. I didn't take it, but keep it in mind. Injured enemies or enemies with 20% or lower HP. But Ravenous, I think, is a lovely must-have. Synergy killing a vulnerable enemy grants you increased energy regeneration for 4 seconds. And then we have Umbro, which restores resources when you crowd control an enemy. There should be plenty of crowd control. And Shared Misery helps with that. When you hit a crowd controlled enemy, there's chance for that crowd control effect to spread to nearby enemies. Strongly recommended that one there. But you can remove it if you feel you have plenty of crowd control, regardless of that. Now, Aspect of Might. It's not the only defensive skill we have, but it's the one I like the most, my preferred one. You have Disobedience as well, if you like it, but Disobedience is good to consider when you go with Poison Imbue, because you have plenty of damage over time effects. Otherwise, I wouldn't take it. Then there's Cheats Aspect and Uncanny Resilience. Good alternative sources, fewer items, temporary until you get maybe Aspect of Might, but Aspect of Might, that 25% damage reduction for 4 seconds when you use a basic skill is, in my opinion, pretty solid for that nearby damage build. Moving on to the must-haves here. Your range skills have 10% chance to create an arrow storm and the target present location, dealing physical damage over 3 seconds. You can have up to 5 active arrow storms, and that's not considered damage over time. That's considered damage in an area that happens over time, but it's not a bleeding effect or poison effect, this one, so keep that in mind. Casting a skill that is imbued creates an explosion around you, dealing X damage of the same type, and then make an enemy vulnerable has up to a X% chance to grant increased critical strike chance for 3 seconds, up to 9%. Again, lovely synergy. And I think with that we've gone through all of them. Hope everything is clear. If it's not, feel free to ask questions in the comment section. To get notified when I upload more content like this one or other builds and guides for Wooter and not so Wooter games, you can subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to not miss out on notifications. As well as keep in mind there's something called memberships on YouTube, which lets you be a paying member for my channel to get access to perks such as emotes and badges made by me, as well as the option to get one-on-one tutoring for the very basics of Adobe Photoshop, Premiere and After Effects. And memberships can be cancelled at any time if you no longer want to be a member. Thanks for watching all the way until the end, Struckweb. Keep it cool until next time, and goodbye.